Dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor to be with you today to commemorate the 29th anniversary of the brutal massacre of 30,000 PMOI members and supporters in the summer of 1988. Innocent political prisoners, including pregnant women and schoolgirls as young as 13 years of age. They were slaughtered. We have also gathered here, ladies and gentlemen, to salute those brave political prisoners and prisoners of conscience who are on hunger strike in Gohadash prison and other prisons throughout Iran. Ladies and gentlemen, the appalling and cruel hanging and degrading punishments like eye gouging, amputations of hands and limbs continues unabated in Iran right now, and yet the world does nothing. At least 101 people were executed in Iran in the month of July alone, and nearly the same number of people, including juveniles and women, have been hung in the last month of August by this absolutely monstrous regime. That is more, ladies and gentlemen, than 3 executions a day. And it clearly shows what I and many of my colleagues from both Houses of Parliament and all major parties said then, that the choice by Western powers to decouple human rights violations and Tehran's support for terrorism for nuclear negotiations was a regrettable decision, and indeed it was a huge mistake. That was a missed opportunity to pressurize the Iranian regime to make concrete concessions and verifiable improvements in the human rights areas and stop supporting terrorism. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, our role as parliamentarians and that of our government is to focus on human rights issues, and that becomes more important than ever. We must seize every opportunity and occasion of debate in the House of Commons and the House of Lords on Iran to highlight the systematic and ongoing human rights violations in that country and put pressure on the regime to stop its atrocities without political expediency. When the world power allies joined pressure and punitive measures, the Iranian authorities reluctantly accepted international inspections of their nuclear sites, many of whom, by the way, were first exposed by the NCRI. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we very much need the same pressure on human rights to force the regime to stop the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Iran to visit the country to inspect and report on the horrible conditions that exist in the Iranian prisons. But no other issue is perhaps more urgent and at the same time telling about the unacceptable status quo with regards to the situation of human rights in Iran, other than the topic of our rally today, namely the massacre of 30,000 political prisoners during the summer of 1988. Ladies and gentlemen, it is unquestionably the worst crime in Iran's modern history, and it was committed following an order from the highest authority. Yet 29 years on, the perpetrators have still not answered for their crimes. Many of them are instead holding senior and ministerial positions in Iran. This atrocity was one of the main themes at the grand gathering of Iranians in Paris, which I had the privilege to be present at last July. It was clear from the engagement of the 100,000 plus people who gathered in Paris that the issue of justice for the victims and holding the perpetrators of this atrocity responsible was and will be one of the main demands of the Iranians living in exile and outside Iran. I could, ladies and gentlemen, say much more on this subject, but I conclude with the following. It is time for the United Nations and its Human Rights Council to recognize the 1988 massacre as a crime against humanity and to launch an investigation into these mass executions so that those responsible can be prosecuted in an international tribunal. Our request from the United Nations and our government today is fully in line with the mandate of UN Human Rights Council and has international precedent. Now, ladies and gentlemen, when I walked towards Trafalgar Square this afternoon, I was struck by the huge number of people gathering to show their support for being a vegan. I am very much an animal lover, and I regard the mark of human civilization how we treat our animals. But it does puzzle me, if we can get thousands of people to demonstrate about the treatment of animals, why is it that we can't get the same number of people to demonstrate about the murder of human beings? So I applaud all the organisers for bringing us together under Nelson's wonderful column in Trafalgar Square. The sun is shining, the mood is good, but let us make sure that if we have to gather in a year's time on the 30th anniversary, we also gather to celebrate a new regime in Iran where people can live and enjoy freedom, justice and mercy.